Right now, someone less skilled, less intelligent, even less qualified than you is winning. Not because they're better, but because they appear certain. They walk into the room like they belong there. They speak like their words are law. They make moves without hesitation, and people follow them, not because they've earned it, but because they radiate belief. Meanwhile, you're still waiting to feel ready, waiting for the perfect moment, the right words, the green light that never comes. And while you wait, they take what could have been yours. Confidence isn't a gift. It's not something you either have or don't. It's a psychological weapon, one that either you wield or it gets used against you. Centuries ago, Machiavelli understood this brutal law. Those who hesitate, even with genius in their heads, are left behind. The bold, even if blind, are followed. Because in the theater of power, it's not the truth that wins. It's the conviction. This video isn't here to motivate you. It's not here to make you feel better. It's here to rewire your operating system. What you're about to learn isn't about surface-level self-esteem. It's about command. It's about control of yourself, of your space, of your outcomes. You'll learn how to eliminate hesitation, how to speak like a ruler, decisively, economically, undeniably, and how to move like someone the world doesn't question, because your presence answers everything. But understand this first. Your current weakness is not a flaw. It's a result. You were trained to be this way. Programmed by school, by culture, by rewards and punishments. Taught to obey, to seek permission, to be polite, to ask, "Is this okay?" You weren't born timid. You were manufactured into it. What lives inside you now is not a man. It's a behavioral loop, a system of compliance, a domesticated self that waits, apologizes, submits, performs, and flinches every time it senses disapproval. And that voice in your head, the one that questions every move before you make it, that's not your mind. That's the echo of the servant you've been trained to be. And here's the truth. Until that version of you dies, the ruler within you will never rise. Machiavelli didn't whisper. He commanded. He didn't beg for understanding. He acted and let the world respond. He didn't request power. He took it because he understood something most people will never grasp. The very act of asking is proof you don't deserve. So your transformation starts with inversion. Every time you feel the instinct to shrink, expand. Every time you feel the pull to explain, pause. Every time you catch yourself about to apologize, stare. Because power doesn't come from readiness. It comes from rebellion against the part of you that still wants to be liked. Confidence is not a mood. It's not a vibe. It's an identity. And identities are not built through hope. They're forged through ritual defiance against the smaller self. So here's your first law. If it makes you smaller, kill it. A thought, a habit, a friend, kill it. If it makes you hesitate, confront it. If it makes you feel weak, deny it. If it tries to be liked, laugh at it. They'll tell you to be nice, to be agreeable, to be kind. But here's what they won't say. In a world built on perception, nice men are not respected. They're used. They become convenient tools for other people's agendas, swallowed up, then discarded. Because when you lead with niceness, you're not offering value. You're offering submission. Powerful men don't lead with charm. They lead with clarity. They aren't aggressive. They're unshakable. They don't overshare. They observe. They're not liked. They're respected, feared, admired. often silently, because true power moves beneath the surface. And it begins with killing the part of you that still thinks he needs permission. You don't. You don't need to be liked. You don't need validation. You don't need to be understood. You need one thing: the willingness to terrify your former self. Because once you bury the servant, the ruler begins to breathe. And here's the twist: powerful men don't enter a room loudly. They don't dominate with noise. They dominate with presence, not through words, but through energy. Not through action, but through stillness. Not through approval, but through expectation. You don't need to announce yourself. You need to radiate inevitability. That's how a ruler moves. Not because he was given authority, but because he decided he already had it. Machiavelli saw this in the royal courts. The man who ruled wasn't always the one in the crown. Sometimes it was the man standing in the corner, silent, calculating, speaking only when necessary. But when he spoke, every ear in the room tilted toward him. That's the game. Control through contrast. While others rush to speak, you wait. While others brag, you observe. While others perform, you calculate. Because when you own yourself, you own the room. And here's the lie you were taught: that dominance comes from charisma, loudness, performance. It doesn't. It comes from restraint. Silence is control. The man who talks too much is easy to map, easy to challenge, easy to break. But the man who holds his words, who speaks with weight, he creates mystery, tension, power, because no one knows what he's thinking, and that makes everyone uncomfortable. When you walk into a room, stop looking for cues. Stop scanning for approval. Just observe. Let others prove themselves while you collect data. Move slowly, not because you're uncertain, but because you're in command. Predators don't rush. They watch, they wait, they choose when to strike. And most people, they don't even realize how fast they're moving, talking, reacting, trying desperately to be accepted. And in doing so, revealing just how far beneath judgment they still live. But when you move with calm precision, when your words land like decisions rather than suggestions, the energy of the room shifts towards you. People listen differently. They adjust to you. And when they speak first, let them. Because the man who speaks first always gives away more than he should. His desires, his fears, his leverage. And when you see that, you don't react. You position. Because you don't chase attention. You generate gravity. And gravity doesn't ask for attention. It commands orbit. Here's the dangerous truth. At a high enough level, confidence is no longer about being liked. It's about creating uncertainty in others. When you walk in like you've already won, you force people to question themselves, not you. And the key is this: never compete. The moment you compete, you place yourself on equal ground. But the Machiavellian mind doesn't compete, it positions. You don't play the game. You reshape it. If they respect you, good. If they don't, even better. Because indifference to validation is the final form of power. When you no longer need to be respected, but still command it, that's when the room becomes yours. Not because you demanded it, but because you didn't have to. Most men still speak as if they're asking for permission to exist. You can hear it in the tone. The nervous upward inflection at the end of every sentence. The softening phrases, "I'm just saying, I could be wrong. Does that make sense?" That isn't speech. That's self-erasure. A man like that isn't taken seriously because he doesn't take himself seriously. Words, when stripped of certainty, become white noise. And people tune out noise. But when you speak with calm finality, when every sentence lands like a conclusion rather than a suggestion, people listen. Not because your ideas are better, but because you believe them more deeply than anyone else in the room. And the human mind is wired for shortcuts. We don't always follow logic. We follow certainty. Why? Because certainty feels like truth. And humans, for all our intelligence, are deeply emotional creatures. This is one of the most powerful psychological biases in existence, the confidence heuristic. We equate certainty with competence. If someone sounds sure, we assume they are right. If they hesitate, we assume they aren't worth listening to. So the Machiavellian doesn't speak to express himself. He speaks to control emotion. He speaks to project certainty, because he knows that perception is reality. So what does that voice sound like? It's low. It's slow. It's deliberate. Every word is measured. Nothing is rushed. You speak like each sentence is final, as if it's not open for negotiation. You don't hope to be obeyed. You speak like someone who already expects it. And it doesn't matter if you're in a room full of experts. Because experts, just like everyone else, are emotional. If you sound like a decision, they'll defer to you, even if they know more. Why? Because people would rather feel safe than be correct. And here's your first linguistic law. Sound like the end, not the beginning. Most people ramble. They build up to their point. They soften their delivery. They leave room for interpretation, but not you. You speak, then you stop. You let your words land. You don't rush to fill the silence that follows. You own it. Because silence, after a strong statement, is terrifying. It dares people to challenge you, and most won't, because they're afraid of what you might say next. Here's another rule no one told you. The more you say, the more power you leak. The Machiavellian mind understands this. Every extra sentence is a liability, a chance for people to decode you, a chance for people to question you, a chance to lose control of the narrative. So you speak less. But when you do, it cuts. You remove all the softness. No filler, no disclaimers, no apologies. You never say, I think. You say, this is. You never say, I'm just saying. You say, exactly. You never say, maybe this makes sense. You say nothing, and let your silence demand agreement. Because weak men speak to escape discomfort, but strong men cause discomfort to break control loops and reset the hierarchy. And understand this, the most powerful part of your voice isn't even the words. It's the tone beneath them. That tone, the calm, grounded, unshakable tone, is what people actually respond to. It's what makes you feel real in a world full of posturing and noise. You want to rise? Lower your pitch. Slow your tempo. Remove the nervous energy. Breathe fully. Pause longer than you think you should. Sound like someone with nothing to prove. Because when you speak like that, the message is clear. You've already decided. The world is welcome to catch up. You don't win conversations by being louder. You win by speaking like someone who can't be contradicted. Because when your tone communicates certainty, your words don't feel optional. They feel inevitable. This is how kings speak. This is how rulers speak. This is how men speak when they no longer need to convince, but only to declare. And when someone disagrees, you don't flinch, you don't debate, you don't explain. You simply say, I disagree. Or, better, that's incorrect. And then, you move on. No defense, no justification, just certainty. Because when you refuse to engage in debate, you send a signal most people aren't ready to receive. Your reality is not up for discussion. You're not seeking agreement. You're offering access. And access is earned, not assumed. This is how you control a room without ever raising your voice. Because volume is for men who haven't built gravity yet. But gravity is silent. It bends everything around it, without force, without effort. You want that level of power? Then speak like someone who doesn't care if he's heard, because his presence already does the talking. You speak like someone who doesn't care if he's right, because the world will eventually find out he is. You speak like someone whose words don't fill space, they shape it. And that is presence. Confidence without emotional control is decoration. You can walk tall, speak well, dress sharp, but if someone can trigger you with a single sentence, you're not powerful. You're exposed. And that's where most men fall apart. They master presence. They polish their voice. They learn to move with precision. But inside, their emotions still belong to everyone else. A whisper of disrespect, and they flare up. A compliment, and they soften. A long silence, and they spiral. Their mood, determined by the room. Their identity, available to the highest bidder. Understand this: you are not truly powerful until you become emotionally untouchable. That doesn't mean you stop feeling. It means you stop reacting. You begin to choose what emotions deserve your action, and you discard the rest like noise. Machiavelli understood this in the cold halls of power. He didn't fear enemies. He feared dependency. Not just physical, but emotional. He didn't trust affection. He trusted control. Because the moment someone can predict what moves you, they own you. They press here, you flinch. They praise you, you lean in. They ignore you, and you bend to be seen again. That's not power. That's programming. And the Machiavellian man? He breaks the code. He refuses to be someone others can move. So here's the transformation. You stop reacting. You start calculating. Someone insults you. You don't defend. You observe. What are they trying to extract from you? What weakness are they testing? Someone praises you. You don't melt. You analyze. Why now? What do they want? What have they sensed in you? Someone ignores you. You don't panic. You grow colder. Because silence is no longer your wound. It's your weapon. This is what psychological invincibility looks like. Not numbness, but mastery. You feel everything. You register every shift in energy, but you act on nothing unless it serves your purpose. That is when you become untouchable. Because most men are still walking pressure points. Push here, they explain. Push there, they justify. Pull away, they beg. It's laughably easy to manipulate them. Why? Because they still crave one fatal thing: to be understood. That's the root virus, the fatal code in your emotional software. You want people to get you, to approve, to validate, and that's what keeps you compliant. Burn that need. You don't exist to be understood. You exist to influence, to shape, to direct the flow of the room. You don't need more empathy from others. You need access control. They don't get to know your mind. They get to see your moves. That's it. And the moment you realize this, everything shifts. You stop chasing acceptance. You stop explaining yourself. You stop needing to be chosen. Because now, you're choosing. You're the gate. You're the gravity. And if someone loses access to you, that's not your loss. That's their disqualification. From here on, You don't react. You evolve. Every test becomes data. Every rejection becomes a refinement. Every silence becomes an amplifier. You disappear strategically. You reappear surgically. And every version of you is colder, clearer, more controlled. Let's talk about rejection. To the weak, rejection feels personal. To the powerful, rejection is positional. People reject what they believe they can survive without. So if they dismissed you, it means they thought you were dispensable. That's not an insult. That's intel. Now you know where they stand. Now you know what needs to be upgraded. And here's your 3-step response to rejection. Step 1. Do not appear affected. No flinch. No shift in energy. No visible pain. Because the moment you show it, they win. Not because they hurt you, but because they mapped you. You don't give them that. You give them ice. Step 2. Withdraw your presence like a weapon. When something once abundant disappears, people feel it. They sense the void. They question the value. That's what you do. You vanish. Quietly, strategically. No emotional closure. No performance. Just absence. And while they feel your silence, you build. Step 3. Rewrite the narrative. Rejection only stings if it looks like you were chasing something. But what if you were the one evaluating? What if you let them think they rejected you while you were deciding whether they were qualified to stay near you? Now it's not their no that defines the moment, it's your clarity. They failed a test they didn't even know they were taking. Let them sit with that. And here's the masterstroke. Step 4. Convert rejection into control. Most people get vague after rejection, confused, insecure. Not you. You get surgical. Rejection shows you where your presence hasn't made impact yet. So what do? You sharpen the edge. You increase your contrast. You amplify your value so loudly that the next time they hear your name, they feel it. And the next time they come back, because they will, you don't need to reject them. You've already evolved beyond their reach. That's not revenge. That's ascension. No anger, no spite, just distance, too vast to cross. Because here's the law. The higher your value, the quieter your reaction. And the final stage? Step 5. Weaponize your comeback. You don't reappear to flex. You reappear to haunt. Your presence becomes undeniable. Your name returns to their world. Not through bitterness, but through undeniable progress. They watch you succeed in the space they said you didn't belong in. And you say nothing. No sarcasm. No eye contact. No closure. You don't return to be accepted. You return to set the standard. Because the one who was once rejected now commands the room they once begged to enter. Rejection is not failure. It's a mirror. A filter, a fire. It shows you what must evolve, what must be cut, and who must be left behind. So from this moment forward, stop interpreting rejection as a wound. It's not. It's a recalibration, a realignment toward the version of you that doesn't beg, doesn't plead, doesn't ask twice. Because once you become the man who no longer flinches at no, you become the man who controls what yes even means. That's the final layer, identity. This was never about confidence. Not really. It was about control. Mental, emotional, psychological. You've been conditioned your entire life to be liked. But now you've reconditioned yourself to be feared, not by others, but by the version of yourself that once needed permission to breathe. You've stopped chasing approval. Now you make people feel the cost of losing you. You've become scarce, strategic, silent, and they've noticed. You no longer enter rooms hoping to be accepted. You enter with presence, posture, and precision. And when you speak, your tone says what your words don't. Disagree if you want. It won't matter. Because what makes you powerful isn't what you say. It's what people feel when you say it. They sense that you're not moved, not reactive, not available. You've become unreachable, emotionally, psychologically. That doesn't mean you don't care. It means you don't chase. You don't explain. You don't need anyone to understand you because you understand the game. And here's what terrifies them most. You no longer respond to manipulation. They praise you. You stay cold. They ignore you. You stay cold. They provoke you. You stay cold. Because your identity is fortified. You are no longer shaped by others. You are the one shaping them. That is what makes you untouchable. Rejection used to feel like a death sentence. Now it's a signal. Not that you're inadequate, but that you've outgrown the space. Not that they rejected you, but that they revealed they were unqualified to access you. That's intel. That's leverage. So next time it happens, you don't explain. You disappear. You don't complain. You build. You don't react. You elevate. Machiavelli once said, "Men should be treated generously or destroyed, because they take revenge for slight injuries, but not for ones too severe." So don't retaliate. Just vanish so thoroughly that they begin to doubt whether they ever really knew you. Leave behind not a scar, but a silence so deep it haunts. And as you rise, they'll watch. They'll feel the loss. They'll come back. But by then, you'll be someone else. Not better. Not louder. Just colder. And here's your final weapon: narrative control. You don't just move forward. You rewrite the past. They didn't reject you. They failed a test. They didn't overlook your value. They exposed their blindness. You weren't dismissed. You were misjudged. And now, elevated beyond recognition. And that new story, you don't tell it. You live it. You embody it. Until your silence becomes legendary. Until your presence changes the atmosphere. Until your absence becomes a question no one has the courage to ask aloud. Because you're no longer trying to be accepted. You're setting the standard. This is what real transformation looks like. Not flashy, not loud, but slow, consistent, and terrifying in its silence. You don't need to announce who you've become. They'll feel it in your eyes, in your walk, in your refusal to engage. You've become the man they used to ignore. Now impossible to forget. Because legends don't explain themselves. They exist, and the world bends around them. So here's your final command. Like this video if you're done chasing. Subscribe if you're ready to become the kind of man they can't predict, can't move, and can never forget. Because this isn't self-help. This is psychological warfare. And now, you are the weapon.